In the beginning, stories were told. They weren't written. There's something very elemental about speaking the story that puts it to a different test. And that test excites me. Hi, I'm Michael Lewis, and I narrated my story, The Coming Storm, for Audible. It's about the value of the data the government collects, and the case study here is the weather data. The idea that we may be headed into a world where you get the forecast you pay for is a kind of a shocking idea. Just a beauty to both what's happened with weather prediction and the weather data, and the way it ripples through the lives of ordinary Americans, and the disconnect between how good the government has gotten at a certain job and the people's ability to absorb how good it's gotten. There were a couple things that were interesting about it. One is that when you read your words, you see things you would rather put differently. So I actually will write it a little differently because I read it aloud with an audience. Pause a moment to consider the audacity of that maneuver. A private company whose weather predictions were totally dependent on the billions of dollars spent by the U.S. taxpayer to gather the data necessary for those predictions, and on decades of intellectual weather work sponsored by the U.S. taxpayer, and on the international data sharing treaties made on behalf of the U.S. taxpayer, and on the very forecast that the National Weather Service generated, was, in effect, trying to force the U.S. taxpayer to pay all over again for what the National Weather Service might be able to tell them for free. My advice to the EPA is, look, the mission you have is critical to the health of the society. We need clean air and clean water, and it is a public good. And if you do not regulate pollution, people will pollute because they don't experience the costs of the pollution. I think the society is going to wake up and come again to appreciate what these people do, maybe only after some catastrophe, but nevertheless they will wake up. So you do your best to preserve the mission and the enterprise and the body of knowledge you've accumulated, and kind of wait for reinforcements.